Hi friends, how are you? I'm Nicole and this is Crimes with Cole. So, hello. How are you guys doing today? I hope you all are having an amazing day. I hope you've had a wonderful week and are ready for another crazy crime story. On the night of December 15th, 2005, police had walked into an apartment that looked like the aftermath of a storm. There was a lamp smashed on the ground, blood splattered everywhere, a knife that glinted under fluorescent lights, and on the living room floor laid the body of 19-year-old Nona Dirksmeyer. She had been beaten and stabbed. Nona Dirksmeyer grew up in Pope County, Arkansas, where she was known early on for her drive and charisma. Her father had passed away when she was only 10, leaving her mother Carol to raise her alone. She was a rather shy girl and kept to herself. She wasn't like the show-off type that was arrogant. And looking at her, you'd never know that because of how stunning she was. She was absolutely gorgeous. Like the type of beauty that makes people stop and do a second take. Like beautiful. She had a small group of friends that she was close with, and that was it. She was really hard to get to know and didn't open up to anyone. One person in particular, Kevin Jones, was one of her really good friends that she had first met in kindergarten. And over the years, she grew close to Kevin and became comfortable opening up to him. Kevin was a great guy, just overall kind, sweet, loving. He always did the right thing, like he always did right by people. He was never nasty and cared for Nona deeply. He truly cared for Nona as a person and wanted the best for her. He saw how amazing Nona was. Her friends saw how amazing she was, but Nona didn't see how amazing she was. She had been dealing with severe depression, and it showed in her self-confidence and her self-worth. She couldn't see the effect she had on people. She couldn't see how exceptional she was. But they all could. They just wanted to find a way to get her to open her eyes and see all she had to offer. So they all convinced her to join a pageant and become a pageant queen. And at first she was like, no, I don't think so. But then she got excited and everyone was there to support her. Her mom hired a pageant coach so she'd know how to present herself and what to expect. Her friends and Kevin were absolutely her biggest fans during the entire thing. And they really felt like this may be it. This may be what Nona had needed. But Kevin still noticed this sad side to Nona. She would fall into those horrible depressive states. She'd have full-blown panic attacks. And they just didn't understand why. Until one day, Nona had confided in her best friend and told her how her own father had been sexually assaulting her for years when she was just a small child. And she kept that buried for years. That's a huge secret to keep. And it just made her feel dirty and broken. She started to self-harm because she didn't know how, or she didn't have the opportunity to express herself to anyone. After her best friend found this out, she immediately told her mother, which I can understand, but I can also understand where Nona just wants to tell everyone to get it off of her chest. She had told Kevin before anyone else, and Kevin just kept it to himself. He was there for her in case she needed to vent more and didn't try to really fix the situation, but rather allowed Nona to sort through everything that she's not sorted through yet. Eventually, Nona's mother found out, and she was disgusted and devastated for her daughter. I mean, at that point, her father had done passed, but that doesn't take away the mental pain. So Carol supported Nona the best she could through working out this traumatic event. After graduating high school, she enrolled in Arkansas Tech University, majoring in music education. She wanted to be an elementary school teacher. She was also a member of her church and sang in her choir, as well as a volunteer for Big Brothers Big Sisters of America. I mean, she was just very kind and loving and a giving person. She ended up moving to an apartment that was off campus because the man that her mother ended up marrying was a man named Dwayne, and he was very strict. Rules were rules, and Nona was grown in his eyes, so he didn't need to come in and parent her, but she was going to respect the rules of his house. And she wanted to enjoy her college years, like most college kids do, and figured it would be best to just get her own place near school. She's 10 minutes from her mom and Dwayne, so she can always go visit. The summer of 2005. Now at this point, Kevin and Nona are both 19. They've just finished their first year of college and have been together for 4 years. They have an amazing relationship, and Kevin really was great for Nona. He was able to reach her on levels that other people couldn't. She truly felt like she could be unfiltered with him and felt at ease. Almost like she was at peace when she was with him. So when the summer of 2005 came, Kevin had made plans to move. He was transferring to University of Arkansas, which was 90 minutes away from her. But he was going to make sure that things between them stayed strong. He wasn't going to just give up on her. He wanted to be with her. He just had an opportunity to pursue his education elsewhere. So the two of them decided that a long-distance relationship could work for them. He would come down every weekend, or she would go see him. They'd talk every night. They would text every day. I mean, there's no reason why they can't just stay in touch. It's 2005. So that's what ended up happening. Kevin moved, and the two of them made it a point to talk every day. They texted first thing when they woke up and made it a point to say goodnight when they went to bed. And if they didn't text back in a timely manner, the other one would jokingly text, "Are you alive?" Because Nona didn't like when Kevin kept her waiting. Kevin just had this effect on Nona, and it was for the better good. Now, during this time, Nona's first pageant was approaching. She was a nervous wreck. She didn't feel she was ready for this. In fact, she didn't want to do it anymore. But when Kevin walked in holding a bouquet of roses, it's like time froze for Nona. And reassurance just entered her, and she knew everything was going to work out perfectly. She knew she could get up on that stage, and she did. And everyone was so proud of her. She was just so graceful and stunning, and to everyone's surprise, hers especially, Nona ended up being crowned Mrs. Petit Jean Valley, which was such an accomplishment, especially for her, as introverted as she was, as shy and standoffish as she was. She had gained a lot of attention, almost too much attention for her liking. She was still living in that apartment off campus, and she lived alone. And at one point, there were a couple of guys that had came up to her and was a little too pushy, and it made Nona really uncomfortable. Shortly thereafter, a guy actually came knocking on her door and tried to push his way in, which would make anyone uncomfortable. But this put her into overdrive on being aware of her surroundings. She almost became paranoid and standoffish towards everyone except a few people here and there that she knew really well. It just really left an imprint on her. The relationship between her and Kevin started to change some. They both still loved each other and talked every day. They even started talking about marriage. They weren't planning it, but they knew it was going to happen at the right time. They both saw it in their future, but Nona was starting to also gain a few more friends since winning her crown. More male friends that Kevin didn't know about. Not that there's anything wrong with having friends of the opposite sex while in a relationship, but who Nona was prior to the pageant compared to who she is now after the pageant was just a change. It's almost like it worked. And she found a little bit of her self-worth. And that's what her friends originally wanted from the beginning. So Nona was making a few new friends and busy with finals and finishing up the fall semester. On December 14th, Kevin had drove over to Nona's apartment. He was already on winter break and decided to spend the day with her, so they did. The next day, on December 15th, they both had plans. Nona had a final to do and then go see her like little sister with the big brother, big sister thing. And Kevin was taking his mom to a Christmas party and had some errands to run. So the night of December 14th, Kevin decided to just go back to his parents' house, which was like 10 minutes away, and got there around midnight. He woke up that next morning around 9:30 a.m. and saw his text from Nona, which read, "Good morning, Cuddle Muffin. I love you and hope you have a wonderful day." He thought nothing of it. I'm sure, sent a text back saying, "I love you and, just give me a call when your finals were over." But she never did. She never reached out after her finals. And remember, they talk all the time. And after a while, the routine and usually know when they are going to call or text. So when Nona didn't call, it started to concern Kevin. So he called her and texted her and she didn't reply. So he called again and she still didn't answer. The hours passed and she still never returned his calls. At this point, Kevin was ready to take his mother to her Christmas party. But when they got into the car, Kevin had called his buddy Ryan, who delivers pizzas near Nona's apartment, and asked him to swing by her apartment and see if her car was there. She wasn't answering his calls and texts, and that's just not like her. Ryan got to the apartment complex, saw Nona's car, called Kevin and said, "Hey, her car is here." Kevin's like, "Okay, go up to the door and knock then." So Ryan does, except he gets no answer. However, he did notice that the lights upstairs were on. So he told Kevin, and Kevin had this feeling that something bad had happened. And when you're that close to someone, you just know. So he immediately tells his mom, "We're not going to the party. We have to go check on Nona." They turn the car around and they head over to her apartment. During that exact same time, a 911 call had came into Russellville Police Department. It was a woman on the line saying that they needed help. She was standing outside what was Nona's apartment, crying, hysterical, telling police they needed help. The person inside this apartment needs help, and her name is Nona Dirksmeyer. When police entered the apartment, they see Nona lying on the floor, face down and nude. Her face is unrecognizable. Blood is everywhere. Nona's bra had been lying on the side of her body. Her jeans were inside out and tossed to the side alongside with her underwear. It was very obvious that she was brutally attacked. Police continue throughout the apartment to see everything, and out of the shadow of one of the rooms was Kevin, covered in blood. The blood was dripping from his hands as he raised them up slowly, shaking. Police take him outside and he asks if someone did this to Nona, which they replied, yes. And he asked them if she was dead, and they said yes. They had detained Kevin, following normal protocol, and got him into an interview room for more questioning. If anyone knew Nona, it was Kevin. Carol, Nona's mother, had arrived, and as you can imagine, she was devastated. She initially thought that Nona had taken her own life because of all of her mental health struggles, in the past, but the police reassured Carol that this was a homicide. They also told Carol that Kevin had been taken down to the station for questioning. Back at Nana's apartment, they were collecting as much evidence as they could. They had noticed a bloody handprint that was smeared some, Nana's hair on the bottom of the smashed lamp, blood on the blinds, and her cell phone battery had been removed from her phone. Nana was then sent to have a full autopsy done. While Kevin was being interrogated, he came off very sad and concerned. Like he just lost the love of his life and he didn't know who could have done this. And I'm sure felt tremendous guilt because he's always been there for her. As he continues to explain to the detectives what happened that night, he told them that when he arrived, the front door was locked. So he went around back to the sliding door. Nana always kept like a stick jammed up against the door. So no matter how hard you tried, you couldn't slide the door open, but the stick wasn't there. So he was able to get inside the apartment. After making his way into the apartment, he saw Nana lying there with a pool of blood underneath her head and a card from her mom lying near her hand. And the police were convinced it was Kevin. They kept questioning him for 3.5 hours. And he was persistent that he did not do anything to Nana. He would take his own life before he ever did anything to Nana. Once Kevin had gotten into the apartment, he had gotten on top of Nana, like straddling her, his knees around her midsection, giving her CPR, but she wasn't breathing. Her eyes just had this blank, lifeless stare in them. Meanwhile, Kevin is attempting CPR and praying to God that Nana will come back. His friend Ryan had let Kevin's mom inside the apartment through the front door, and when she saw what happened, she stepped outside and called 911. When 911 arrived, that's when they saw Kevin all covered in her blood. So after they questioned Kevin for hours, they had to let him go because they didn't have enough evidence to hold him. And they had some other people to question. Nana's official cause of death was a blow to the back of the head. She had a broken bone in her neck. Her face was severely smashed and beaten in. She had 17 stab wounds all over her body. They believe the lamp was what was used to cause this damage because of the placement of it in her apartment, and there was blood on the light bulb. What they also found in her apartment was a condom wrapper on the kitchen counter. Not the actual condom, but the wrapper. So they came up with the theory that Kevin was a jealous, enraged boyfriend that found out about Nana seeing some other guy. Because the condom obviously didn't belong to Kevin, or he would have said something. So who did it belong to then? The detectives started to question everyone. Friends, family, the people in her apartment complex, the guys she was over friendly with, and everyone's alibi checked out. Every single one. So that left them to point their finger at Kevin. December 21st came, and this was the day of Nana's visitation. But as Kevin was getting ready to attend, he found out some information and wanted to tell the police so that they knew. Like, why he didn't just wait until after, I don't know, because I would have been hyper-focused on her visitation. Anyhow, Kevin calls the police and they ask Kevin to come down to the station. It won't be long. Like, he'll be done in enough time for the visitation. He gets down there and he tells the police that he heard rumors that there was someone spotted leaving Nana's apartment the night of the murder. Police are like, yeah, okay, sure, but will you take a polygraph test for us? Why people agree to these, I don't know, because I feel like they always lead to something bad. So he agrees to this test. He's like, yeah, I'll do it. I have nothing to hide. I'll take a DNA test. Like, whatever it takes to find Nana's killer. When police had looked through Kevin's phone records, his text messages, they found 2 messages. One which read, "Why are you leading me on?" and another which read, "Are you alive?" So police had created this theory that the morning Nana was murdered, Kevin had gone over to her apartment that morning with the intentions to snoop through her stuff. Because remember, according to the police, he's this crazy jealous boyfriend. So he wanted to go snoop and creep through her things to see if she was seeing anyone else. He had his own key, so he let himself in that morning thinking she was taking her finals. But when he walks in, he sees this condom wrapper on the kitchen counter, which I don't know why any girl would do that. But then he gets pissed. She's there. He attacks and chokes her, and then after everything else is said and done, he leaves and locks the door behind him. Then drives around for a bit and is over there later on for when he found her. They felt the crime scene was staged and there was no sign of forced intercourse, so maybe it was Kevin who left the wrapper on the counter. They also believe that he wanted to be there covered in her blood when they arrived, because it would help him make his case on why her blood was on him. So after 6 hours of having Kevin at the station for his polygraph test and some more questioning the police had, he completely missed Nona's visitation, which a lot of people questioned. Like, why would Kevin of all people miss her visitation? Because the police needed him. But why did the police need him so bad? Is it because he's actually guilty? So the police came back into the interrogation room with the results from Kevin's polygraph test, and they said that he failed terribly. They've never seen someone lie as much as he did. And this is why I don't like or agree with them. I think everyone should say, no, I want an attorney, and just sit there quietly and quit trying to prove themselves innocent, even if you are. They just don't, because the police are going to lie. Anyway, so the police come back and they tell Kevin that the results, he failed, right? But how was Kevin supposed to know that? How was he supposed to know that they would lie about the results? Like, he's a good kid. He always grew up with the best intentions, never interacted with the law in a criminal manner until now. So they start getting an aggressive tone with Kevin, telling him that he did do this. He was mad because Nona found herself a new boyfriend, and he went over to her apartment, used the key he had, and walked in and attacked her. Why else would there be a bloody handprint on the light bulb of the lamp that was used to bash in her head? The handprint belonged to Kevin. So clearly, it was Kevin. Or so the police kept repeating. But Kevin stood his ground a little bit and said, no, I don't remember touching the lamp. And he's right. Anyone who would walk in and find the love of their life passed away, like, you go into complete shock. And it's like the world around you just turns into a blur. You aren't aware of your surroundings. And that's what Kevin had experienced when he found Nona. So maybe he did touch the lamp, but it wasn't because he had grabbed it and smashed her head in with it. But police kept on insisting he did it. He said, no, you know where I was every hour of that day. I have people who can account for where I was every hour of that day. When did she die? You have the autopsy report, so what time was it? And at this point, police started playing off Kevin's words. Kevin kept saying he didn't do it. He swears to God he didn't do it. And police would then say, well, God knows what happened. And what would God want you to do? He'd want you to tell the truth. So at this point, police decide to take another route, which I think is so unethical. They decide to go over to Nona's mother's house and tell her that Kevin did it. Kevin was the one who took her daughter's life. Mind you, they had no concrete evidence against Kevin, just a few pieces of evidence here and there, but they didn't care. They were going to make this story fit their narrative, no matter what. And Carol was shocked. She loved Kevin like her own, thought he was going to be her son-in-law, and now she's finding out he's a narcissistic psychopath that took her daughter's life. Word had traveled fast, and everybody in town was against Kevin. So the police's plan had worked. On March 31st, 2006, Kevin was arrested and charged. His parents put up their family farm as collateral to get the best defense attorney for him. They get the trial moved to another town called Ozark, and the trial is set for July 2007. So the prosecution argues that Kevin is this jealous, driven, enraged, crazy boyfriend who finds Nona with some other guy and ends her life over it. Like, it's a rather cliche approach. The defense says, no, you guys messed up. You never tested the upstairs of the apartment for any DNA. You never tested the doors for DNA where there was clearly blood on it. You never looked or scanned for footprints, which someone clearly had to have walked through there to attack her. In fact, you had someone run a polygraph test on Kevin who wasn't even certified or trained to do so. So that was a complete sham. And then they dropped the fact that the condom wrapper found on the kitchen counter had DNA from another guy. Imagine being Kevin, sitting in a courtroom and hearing that. Oh my God. Each side played portions of the investigation videos of Kevin. The prosecution clearly showed the parts that made him look like he was just like upset he got caught. But the defense always came back and said, oh, but wait, let's go a few more minutes into the same video and see how Kevin is breaking down, sobbing, clearly distraught that the love of his life is gone. So after 8 hours of deliberating, the jury found Kevin not guilty. They truly believe the investigation was done poorly. Kevin was acquitted, and right before the trial, Kevin's family spent their last pennies getting that condom's DNA tested to prove it wasn't Kevin, and thank God they did. But if it wasn't Kevin, who was it that took Nona's life? A new detective came onto the case and took a look at all the guys in Nona's life. All the guys that she had been talking to, hung out with, anyone that had interaction with her in the last month of her life, except none of them matched the DNA on the wrapper. So that left them searching in a different direction. 2 months after Kevin was acquitted, a man by the name of Gary Dunn, who happens to be Nona's neighbor, was arrested for burglary. He was arrested for attempted murder and second-degree battery back in 2002 and was currently on parole for it. He had attacked a woman who was jogging one day. He was sitting like on the bench and just decided to snatch her up and started beating her with a log he had found along the jogging path. Like, he's crazy. I know. So he was sentenced to 18 months for that and was currently on parole. So they started to look into Gary. Now, originally, they ruled Gary out. His alibi checked out, and they were like, cool, he isn't our dude. But this time around, the new detective felt differently. So he asked Gary where he was on the 15th. Gary said he went shopping with his mom. The detective pulls up the bank statement showing that Gary did, in fact, make transactions on the 15th. However, the detective decided to call the bank to see if this was just when they had posted or if they were actually made on that day. And the bank lady said, yeah, they could have just posted that day, which means the actual date of the transaction was a day or two prior. This detective decided to go to every store that was on the bank statement and ask them for their copies of transactions that were done on like which day and by who. They wanted to find the legit time and day that Gary made these purchases, except they were all like mom and pop shops. So they had paper receipts. He spent hours searching through receipts to find Gary's transactions, and he finally found it. December 13th, 2 days before Nona's death. They also spoke with Gary's wife, who was actually his ex-wife, and she informed the detective that Gary absolutely knew Nona, and in fact was the one who had found her cat when her cat went missing at one point. She continued to say that Gary was the one who probably stole the cat so that he could speak to Nona and find a way to get into her apartment. In fact, one night she couldn't find Gary, like back when the two of them were together. She looked outside around midnight and saw Gary standing in Nona's doorway. Like, that's creepy. That's creepy. And she also mentioned that Gary begged for her to lie for him about being at the construction site when they originally asked for his alibi the first time around. And she did. So they decided to test his DNA and see if they had a match, and they did. They had a partial match to the DNA found on the condom wrapper. And from my understanding, a partial match to the DNA means that the DNA is one of Gary's close relatives. But either way, it put them in the right direction. So they hunted down Gary and arrested and charged him with capital murder. His trial was to begin in 2010. The prosecution's stance was that Gary used Nona's cat as bait to get away into her apartment, used that condom to try and conceal his DNA while he was forcing himself onto her, and then took her life. Gary's defense came back and said, no, you got it right the first time. It was Kevin. Why would it be Gary? Gary doesn't have any reason to harm Nona, let alone take her life. The only DNA you found in there that belonged to Gary was a partial match. But you know whose DNA was there in multiple places? Kevin. It was Kevin. After the jury had deliberated over this, they came back a hung jury. There wasn't enough evidence to convince the jury that Gary had done it. So the prosecution retried the case, and Gary is stuck in jail until early 2011 at this point. Round 2 approaches, and this time Kelly Jo decides to testify against Kevin. Kelly Jo is the lady that he had attacked on the jogging path. But again, it came back a hung jury. They just didn't have enough evidence to prove it was him. So Gary went free. 10 years later, after Nona's death in December of 2018, 2 calls came into the police from 2 separate women. The first woman was a lady at church who said this man was trying to force her into his car. The second woman was a student at the same college Nona had attended that said some guy tried to force her into his car. The description from both ladies were the same. They described the attacker to be the same and also described the same car. Who was this man? Gary. It was Gary Dunn. They tracked him down and arrested him. He was sentenced to 15 years. He was charged for 2 counts of attempted kidnapping and indecent exposure. He took a plea deal though, so he only got 15 years. Did they ever convict him of Nona's murder? No, and no one actually was ever convicted of her murder, which I'm sure is extremely hard for her loved ones. As for Kevin, he ended up becoming a defense attorney in the town of Russellville. What he had gone through was life-changing, and he felt taking that path could help others that were done wrong or will be done wrong by the justice system. He had made peace with Nona's mother, and that's what matters most to him. He didn't care if anyone else thought he was guilty or not. He just wanted to make sure that Carol didn't, because he valued her opinion over anyone else's, and she doesn't anymore. She loves Kevin just as much as she once did and believes that he truly did not do this to her daughter. She loves Kevin as much as she once did and believes that he truly did not do this to her daughter. But that is all I have for today. You'll have to let me know what you guys think. And until next time, please remember to be safe, and I will see you then. Bye.